Guten Tag, and welcome to another episode in our world of stories, our storytime series this summer, where we are comparing stories as they're told in the United States to how they're told in different countries. And to do this, we're using the Aarne-Thompson-Uther index, or the ATU index, which is an index that was created over 100 years ago, where scholars have compiled thousands of fairy tales from around the world and put them into groups by different topics and themes. So today we are going to be looking at the theme of Jack the Giant Killer. Like I said, we'll start with a story from the US. So what story do you think goes along with Jack the Giant Killer? Why, Jack and the Beanstalk, of course. So we'll start with that story, and then we'll see how the same story plays out in another, and in this case, very classic version. So for Jack and the Beanstalk, this is actually a story that has a lot of variations and a lot of differences in how it's told around the United States. For the sake of ease, it goes something like this. So we have a boy named Jack who lives with his mother, and they are not very well off. So one day his mother tells Jack to go to the market to sell their cow, and there he meets a mysterious figure, and this person trades Jack for the cow. He trades him a handful of magic beans. So Jack goes home with these magic beans and shows his mother, and his mother is understandably not very happy, because who would trade a cow for a couple of beans? So she throws the beans out the window and sends Jack to bed with no dinner. Then the next day, Jack and his mother wake up, and outside, surprise, surprise, there is a huge beanstalk growing up into the sky. So Jack climbs the beanstalk, and he finds at the top a huge castle, and inside is a giant, a very hungry giant. So Jack sneaks into the castle and takes a look around, but the giant soon smells that there's a human about. So we hear the classic rhyme, "Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman." So Jack has to use all of his cleverness and all of his speed to sneak past the giant and save his own life. In the process, there are lots of different versions of how this happens. Jack tricks the giant, either lulling him to sleep or waiting for him to sleep and then tying his shoes together. All right, lots of different ways, but Jack tricks the giant and ends up stealing some of the giant's treasure. So in some stories, he steals just treasure. In some, it's a goose that lays golden eggs. In some, it's a harp that is magical and sings or plays music by itself. Right, but Jack steals this treasure and heads back down the beanstalk, set to set his mom and him up for a much easier life now that they'll have this treasure. The giant, though, is not excited about having Jack steal his treasure, so he follows him down on the beanstalk. Luckily, Jack chops down the beanstalk in time. Down comes the beanstalk, down comes the giant, and Jack and his mother safely live happily ever after with the treasure. So that, roughly, is the story of Jack and the Beanstalk as we tell it here in the United States. Today, we are going to be traveling around the world and several hundred years back in history to the original story of The Brave Little Tailor by the Brothers Grimm from Germany. So if we're traveling to Germany today, let's get ready. All right, let's count down. 3, 2, 1. And now we are ready to go. So today our story is actually from germanstories.vcu.edu. All right, so we have The Brave Little Tailor by the Grimm brothers. So one summer's morning, a little tailor was sitting on his table by the window. He was in good spirits and sewed with all his might. Then came a peasant woman down the street crying, "Good jams, cheap! Good jams, cheap!" This rang pleasantly in the tailor's ears. He stretched his delicate head out of the window and called, "Come up here, dear woman. Here you will get rid of your goods." The woman came up the 3 steps to the tailor with her heavy basket, and he made her unpack all the pots for him. He inspected each one, lifted it up, put his nose into it, and at length said, "The jam seems to me to be good, so weigh me out 4 ounces, dear woman, and if it is 1/4 pound, that is of no consequence." The woman, who had hoped to find a good sale, gave him what he desired, but went away, quite angry and grumbling. "Now this jam shall be blessed by God," cried the little tailor, "and give me health and strength." So he brought the bread out of the cupboard, cut himself a piece right across the loaf, and spread the jam over it. "This won't taste bitter," said he, "but I will just finish the jacket before I take a bite." So he laid the bread near him, sewed on, and in his joy made bigger and bigger stitches. In the meantime, the smell of the sweet jam rose to where the flies were sitting in great numbers, and they were attracted and descended on it in hosts. "Ha! Who invited you?" said the little tailor, and drove the unbidden guests away. The flies, however, who understood no German, would not be turned away, but came back again and again in ever-increasing companies. The little tailor at last lost all patience and drew a piece of cloth from the hole under his work table, and saying, "Wait, and I will give it to you," struck it mercilessly on them. When he drew it away and counted, there lay before him no fewer than 7 dead, with legs stretched out. So that's 7 dead flies. "Are you a fellow of that sort?" he said, and could not help admiring his own bravery. "The whole town shall know of this." And the little tailor hastened to cut himself a girdle, or a belt, stitched it, and embroidered on it in large letters, "7 at 1 stroke." "What the town," he continued, "the whole world shall hear of it." And his heart wagged with joy like a lamb's tail. The tailor put on the girdle and resolved to go forth into the world, because he thought his workshop was too small for his valor from killing 7 flies. Before he went away, he sought about in the house to see if there was anything which he could take with him. However, he found nothing but an old cheese, and that he put in his pocket. In front of the door, he observed a bird which had caught itself in the thicket. It had to go in his pocket with the cheese. Now he took to the road boldly, and as he was light and nimble, he felt no fatigue. The road led him up a mountain, and when he had reached the highest point of it, there sat a powerful giant, looking peacefully about him. The little tailor went bravely up and spoke to him and said, "Good day, comrade. So you are sitting there overlooking the widespread world. I am just on my way thither and want to try my luck. Have you any inclination to go with me?" The giant looked contemptuously at the tailor and said, "You ragamuffin! You miserable creature!" "Oh, indeed," answered the little tailor, and unbuttoned his coat and showed the giant the girdle. "There you may read what kind of man I am." The giant read 7 at 1 stroke, and thought that they had been men who the tailor had killed, and began to feel a little respect for the tiny fellow. Nevertheless, he wished to try him first, and took a stone in his hand and squeezed it together so that water dropped out of it. "Do that likewise," said the giant, "if you have strength." "Is that all?" said the tailor. "That is child's play with us." And he put his hand into his pocket, brought out the soft cheese, and pressed it until the liquid ran out of it. "Faith," said he, "that was a little better, wasn't it?" The giant did not know what to say, and could not believe it of the little man. Then the giant picked up a stone and threw it so high that the eye could scarcely follow it. "Now, little mite of a man, do that likewise." "Well thrown," said the tailor, "but after all, the stone came down to earth again. I will throw you one which shall never come back at all." And he put his hand into his pocket, took out the bird, and threw it into the air. The bird, delighted with its liberty, rose, flew away, and did not come back. "How does that shot please you, comrade?" asked the tailor. "You certainly can throw," said the giant, "but now we will see if you are able to carry anything properly." So he took the little tailor to a mighty oak tree which lay there felled on the ground, and said, "If you are strong enough, help me to carry the tree out of the forest." "Readily," answered the little man. "Take the trunk on your shoulders, and I will raise up the branches and twigs. After all, they are the heaviest." The giant took the trunk on his shoulders, but the tailor seated himself on a branch, and the giant, who could not look around, had to carry away the whole tree, and the little tailor into the bargain. He behind was quite merry and happy, and whistled the song, "Three tailors rode forth from the gate," as if carrying the tree were child's play. The giant, after he had dragged the heavy burden part of the way, could go no further, and cried, "Hark you! I shall have to let the tree fall." The tailor sprang nimbly down, seized the tree with both arms, as if he had been carrying it, and said to the giant, "You are such a great fellow, and yet cannot even carry the tree?" They went on together, and as they passed a cherry tree, the giant laid hold of the top of the tree where the ripest fruit was hanging, bent it down, gave it into the tailor's hand, and bade him eat. But the little tailor was much too weak to hold the tree, and when the giant let it go, it sprang back again, and the tailor was tossed into the air with it. When he had fallen down again without injury, the giant said, "What is this? Have you not the strength enough to hold the weak twig?" "There is no lack of strength," answered the little tailor. "Do you think that could be anything to a man who has struck down 7 at one blow? I leapt over the tree because the huntsmen are shooting down there in the thicket. Jump as I did, if you can do it." The giant made the attempt, but could not get over the tree, and remained hanging in the branches, so that in this also the tailor kept the upper hand. The giant said, "If you are such a valiant fellow, come with me unto our cavern and spend the night with us." The little tailor was willing and followed him. When they went into the cave, other giants were sitting there by the fire, and each of them had a roasted sheep in his hand and was eating it. The little tailor looked around and thought, "It is much more spacious in here than in my workshop." The giant showed him a bed and said he was to lie down in it and sleep. The bed, however, was too big for the little tailor. He did not lie down in it, but crept into a corner. When it was midnight and the giant thought the little tailor was lying in sound sleep, he got up, took a great iron bar, cut through the bed with one blow, and thought he had finished off the tailor for good. With the earliest dawn, the giants went into the forest and had quite forgotten the little tailor, when all at once he walked up to them quite merrily and boldly. The giants were terrified. They were afraid that he would strike them all dead, and ran away in a great hurry. The little tailor went onwards, always following his pointed nose. After he had walked for a long time, he came to the courtyard of a royal palace, and as he felt weary, he lay down on the grass and fell asleep. Whilst he lay there, the people came and inspected him on all sides, and read on his girdle, 7 in 1 at one stroke. "Ah," they said, "what does the great warrior here in the midst of peace? He must be a mighty lord." They went and announced him to the king, and gave it as their opinion that if war should break out, this would be a weighty and useful man, who ought on no account to be allowed to depart. The council pleased the king, and he sent one of his courtiers to the little tailor to offer him military service when he awoke. The ambassador remained standing by the sleeper, waited until he stretched his limbs and opened his eyes, and then conveyed to him the proposal. "For this reason have I come here," the tailor replied. "I am ready to enter the king's service." He was therefore honorably received, and a special dwelling was assigned to him. And that's where we're going to stop with the Brave Little Tailor today. But through another series of events involving 2 more giants, the Brave Little Tailor actually ends up marrying the princess and becoming king of the kingdom. So it's a very, very interesting story told by the Brothers Grimm. But we hope that you enjoyed this story today. Like we've said in our last 2 stories, there are some things that were fairly similar about Jack and the Beanstalk and the Brave Little Tailor. They both have one big similarity. Can you guess what it is? And they've got some other things that are similar too. They also have some things that are very, very different. So what we would like you to do is, for kids in our summer reading program this summer, or it's open to anyone, share some things that you noticed that were the same or that were different for a secret code that you can use to gain 30 bonus points for our summer reading program. So we hope that you enjoyed this story, and we hope that you'll join us next week as we continue to travel around the world comparing stories in our world of stories. Have a good day. Good reading.